And to make them for old people up here.
Start without me if I'm not.
Morning.
Yeah.
It's 9, we can go ahead and get started. We do have topics for today, but before we get into it, is there anything anyone wanted to go over? I know we went long days after town board, everybody always wants to know what happened at town board.
I think probably one of the things that we just alert everybody to, Chuck and Shauna, we'll talk about this later, but I think the town board, in my opinion, sent a clear message to developers last night. Stop wasting our time with incomplete applications by denying the extension for the Canandaigua Shores application. So, they'll have to start all over again and maybe got their attention to either submit a complete application or come back to us when you're ready to submit a complete application.
Understood.
All right, well, our main topics on our schedule for today is Auburn Trail and the End of Cheshire Road Transportation Plan. And I'd like to start with the Auburn Trail. I don't have a lot, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. And we have it's one trail, but we kind of have two projects going on. We've got the section that goes from Purdy Road down to Thomas Road that Fisher Associates has been working on a concept plan for us. And we have the section south of there from Thomas down to basically Outhouse Park that MRB has been working on for us. And I have a note from Jim Fletcher and Greg were telling basically like a short and sweet where we are with the southern section that MRB is working on. We're just waiting on finishing up some easements, I think, on the German Brothers property. And they are also waiting a little bit on I think it was the FFA for the part that may end up going next to the airport or through the bottom of the airport property. So they're waiting for some, Greg Botelling from MRB said they're waiting for some final approval for that.
I'll just touch base on both of those.
Yeah.
So, okay, so just a quick recap. So let's start in your mind here with at Outhouse Park. So the Auburn Trail would be on the back side of Outhouse Park. The trail that's currently in Outhouse Park will actually have to be widened to meet the federal requirements and everything. And then the trail will wind up around the ponds there. And it's actually in place now next to the Civic Center. So you can actually see up next to the Civic Center property line where it is there. We'll actually be crossing right there, County Road 30 at the Civic Center. The county would not give us approval to cross County Road 30, believe it or not. So we had to cross in the city of Canandaigua where the speed limit was lower and get permission from the city to cross. So that's why we're crossing at the Civic Center. Then it would go on the north side, it would make a left-hand turn, go across the German Brothers parcel. We've got a tentative kind of agreement with German Brothers. And then it would go to the berm that we installed on the Stormwater Quality Improvement Project. So then the trail would go along the berm, it would go back to the airport, as you're going north, then you're going up to the airport. The airport, there's been a lot of legalese back and forth. Basically, the FAA said that they would not approve an easement to the town for the trail. But what it sounds like that they will approve is a lease agreement, like a 99-year lease agreement to the town for $1 or whatever. It's just legalese stuff. And then we'll go border going out to Brickyard Road and then going up Brickyard Road on the same side as the airport up to Thomas Road. At that point at Thomas Road, it would then cross over to the other side and then go north, and then that's the northern section. But so there's the airport piece and the German Brothers piece that, we're just getting nailed down here. And then the other thing is we need the ground either to be frozen or to be super dry so that we don't tear up the berm and everything to start putting the trail. And right now, it's not a good time.
What will the trail be? It's stone dust?
Yeah, stone dust.
Compacted stone dust? So it'll be
10 feet wide.
compatible with what we see in the town of Farmington and
Yes.
Vector and so on?
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
And then do you want to touch on the northern piece?
Sure, yeah, so, I've been working with Emily Smith, Quaker Associates, and yesterday she sent me, it's long, so it's broken into pieces and it's turned sideways, but I've got the screen share, so you guys should be able to see this. So taking from where Doug left off, Thomas Road, north is left. The plan is to, use the trail that's already in front of those little townhomes. And then, we'd have to come out to the road where it goes by the golf course, because we're not allowed to use that.
It has to be wide enough.
Yes, I forgot, yeah, the existing one isn't wide enough to meet the ADA requirements, and if we are to attempt to get any kind of federal funding, like through a TAP grant or something like that for this, they would require that anyway. Again, this is still a concept plan from Fisher, there's not any engineered plans yet. So it would bump out here and come back onto that path again, and then continue north. And then here's from Yerkes up, again, just along the side of the road, staying in the right of way pretty much, once it's past the townhomes. And then I have to come to another page to show you, this is up towards the northern part where you get towards Purdy Road. The owner of this mobile home neighborhood has met with Doug, and they walked the property and agreed to allow the trail to come onto their property and come around the back of the farm field by the trees, which will actually make the trail longer, but probably more enjoyable for
Oh,
anyone
much
who
more enjoyable, yes.
travels on it.
That's
So
great.
I was really glad
And
that
then come around.
it comes over, and then it'll come back out and cross the road.
Oh, nice.
And that area is the future, I think, by where that road is gonna be coming onto the property up there that's owned by the Janeco family. So I was actually really pleased. The original idea was to kind of come around or maybe somehow go through, but the original kind of idea was through here, but this is,
It's
I
much
prefer
better.
this.
Is that Town Line Road that you just,
This is Purdy Road.
Pretty rough.
that's pretty.
So is that in PDR, that piece?
This whole section of property is owned by the same person who owns this. It's one tax map.
Where's
and I don't know who
332?
farms it.
I'm lost.
Yeah.
Let me, I have Encore up, though.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, so north is that way, and just to turn you back around the right way, if you come up Thomas,
Yeah.
you know, you can see the little trail here, and then after that, it may come back out to the road. I don't know if they ever finish this, maybe they'll put a path in. And then along the edge of the road up here, this is Brickyard. Continuing up Brickyard, here's where the parcel is with the mobile home property.
He does have to expand that mobile home part too.
And so in the picture, kind of come out here along these trees and go out along this other tree line. Sorry, let me turn that off.
So it's
come
not
along
going
other
to go
tree
all the
line.
way to 332.
No, it's gonna come back left on
Mhm.
Purdy Road and then cut across somewhere in here.
There are trailers there too, it's,
Yes, so just so we've been working a lot with Janeco's because then Janeco owns everything to the
Oh, I
north.
see,
But
I see.
Janeco has purchased 2 mobile homes there that we're working with him, we've been working with him for quite a while now. Both of those mobile homes will be removed, destroyed. That'll be the new road that goes up to
Ah.
Town Line Road, and the trail and the water line will go along that.
Right, yeah, so
so where does it come in then from, Farmington?
right here.
Right there.
Oh,
You
I
see that?
okay.
You see the light color? That's where it ends.
I see, okay, gotcha.
And then, of course, there's gonna be water line work, so hopefully maybe we can do that at the same time. So this plan with Fisher, just to be clear, has not been accepted by the town board yet. She's finishing it up. There's been a couple delays, but one of the delays was the mobile home property, so I'm actually kind of glad for it because it turns out it's gonna be better.
What was the name?
Emily Smith, we're gonna plan, we were gonna try and hold a public meeting, but I think now it's gonna be Zoom public meeting, to give people one more chance to see this, since this looks a little different from when Fisher first started telling us ideas. And then hopefully, before the end of the year, send it to the town board to get their approval. At that point, then, you know, we can, whatever easements we might need to get from the mobile home property and any others, which there shouldn't be too many, if any, then we can maybe seek some grant funding. Long-term projects still, because of course grant funding, some of that doesn't happen until the fall.
And of course, this fits in with the uptown plan, because there'll be, hopefully, there'll be a hotel up there somewhere, and it can encourage more tourism from the active young people that
Yeah,
get on a bicycle and.
Well,
places.
and we have some very, what I would say, preliminary concepts and conversations with developers and landowners about then connecting the Auburn Trail all the way over to Blue Heron Park.
yeah, potentially maybe along Airport Road or something like that.
So, keeping that in mind, is it possible to have, down by, down near Ithaca, they have where you can rent the bicycles and, a drop-off, pick-up, drop-off type thing? Is it possible to participate in that type of thing in the uptown area?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. That's some of the stuff that, when we get awarded our DRI grant, I anticipate the LDC will be having some of those types of conversations about the connecting uptown to the lakefront, about all of that, whether it's these.
But that would all fit in.
Absolutely,
That would all
100%.
fit
Yep.
in, yes.
See, we looked into that before. There were people who had talked about, well, wouldn't it be neat if we had it at Kershaw, but wouldn't it be cool if we had it at both ends? The same company even, so you could pick one up and drop one off, or
Right.
something like that. I don't know
Well,
how
I mean,
it
the
works,
Lake House already provides bicycles
They
to
do,
people
they
that
do.
stay there. It'd be great to have, and I see them throughout the town, or the city, actually, mostly the city.
Yeah. And don't forget, I know we've said it before, but once we can get it connected between Town Line Road and Outhouse Park, then you are connected.
Exactly.
Bits and pieces, but you've got the sidewalk system, so if they walk like you've got a way to get there.
This whole conversation about the Auburn Trail to that North Street area is becoming a recreation destination with Alpine Park, with Motion Junction, with the Civic Center, with the YMCA being constructed next to the Civic Center. It's really shaping up to be kind of, yes, that's also the start of our industrial area going to the north, but there's also a recreation destination there.
I think
Get a
it'll be a boom to
McDonald's up
the
there.
What's that?
tourism.
Time to get a McDonald's up there.
Yeah.
Well, with form-based code, it's a lot
Yeah, there you
easier,
go.
right?
Does anyone have any questions? I know nothing is, set in stone and I don't have exact timelines, but I feel like it's at least moving.
It's been a multi-year, obviously. I mean, the study was originally done in 2011. And then
The
I
big
think
Fisher one?
Fisher
That's
was 13 that it was
Yeah, yeah.
adopted, right? We haven't ignored it. It's just been a lot of pieces to try to bring together. It's a big, big project.
Worthy, though.
And the town would be maintaining these?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
How much of a hassle is that?
Once it's in. I mean, like our existing trails, like the Peanut Line, we mow that weekly, for the grass on the edges and that sort of stuff. Go through every once in a while. The trails, the issue that we're having with trails in the park, like even Outhouse Park, is the base wasn't super great when it was originally done. And so we have weeds that grow back up through it and everything else. So the 2022 budget, which has now been adopted, actually does include money to basically blacktop the paths in Outhouse Park. It's a hot mix asphalt so that to keep the weeds from growing up and everything, and also to make it more user-friendly from a perspective of inclusive.
And several members of the senior group that meet there on Thursday, when they leave, they do the walking around that path, and they mentioned some of the difficulties when it rains with the low areas of it.
So Doug, the southern terminus of the Auburn Trail is Outhouse Park?
For right now, so the study actually includes going from Outhouse Park the study actually shows from North Street using the rail line that's there, the old rail line section going through the school's property, through the city to the Ontario Pathway Trail. So there's two things going on with that. So the southern terminus for us being Outhouse Park, that would connect to the city sidewalk system, which could also get you to the Ontario Pathway Trail. However, the city manager tells me that he's having ongoing conversations with some of the landowners. And I know we've had a joint meeting with the school district about maybe re-picking up or igniting that conversation to connect through the old rail line that would go up next to our joint dog park and then go up to the Ontario Pathway Trail that way. So I think there'd be two, in the future, I predict there'll be two ways to get to that. And then that gets you the full 22 miles of the Ontario Pathway Trail also.
Good, thank you.
Well, big things. Pretty nice to
That's
see it
exciting.
done eventually.
Well, and then also I just add the Parks Master Plan, and we haven't spent a lot of time on this yet, also calls for an extension of the Peanut Line all the way back to the Auburn Trail. You know, I guess let's continue to think about that and look at that, but that's going to be a big project also because we don't have
Yeah.
And the peanut line is actually an unknown gem.
Mhm.
It's a great area for people that can't walk very far
Mhm.
to, walk in
That's so
nothing, there's no buildings around there, just the tree-lined walk, pretty nice.
But what's super cool, I think, and talk about like a marketing or a little historical play, there's a couple of different things in the works here. The Peanut Line, where the Peanut Line meets the Auburn Trail, could essentially be the area there where Motion Junction is.
Mhm.
And the Peanut Line and the Auburn Trail used to come into the orphanage that was where Eric's office is, and that's where you get Trolley Station Apartments and everything over there. And it would come in, and that would be the terminus, essentially in that same area, and then it would go back to the north again. There's another connection that's kind of in the works relative to Motion Junction and that whole not-for-profit organization, and so it's really kind of shaping up like this all may kind of come together, and the new junction may be Motion Junction of all of this. So it's kind of a lot of things in the works. So
We've got exciting parks.
yes.
Anybody have anything else on the trails? Questions? So the other thing we had on our schedule to talk about is the Middle Cheshire Road Transportation Plan that was acknowledged by the town board this past spring.
Acknowledged.
Yes. I don't know.
You're really kind.
I don't know if it was accepted or acknowledged. It was not. And I feel like we kind of just left it there. We did not pick it up again.
I couldn't understand.
Nothing's been done with it since then,
No.
and that was in March. And I don't know I think, we've had a busy year, but we don't have any individual who's like a champion of this. I mean, it's not one project, it's long, it's the whole road all the way down to Wells Curtis. People, I think the group that worked on it generally felt pretty good about what was in it. The suggestions make sense, but, it's huge.
It is.
Even individual sections of it are gonna
Yes.
be very expensive, so obviously outside funding is gonna be important, but this plan is conceptual. There's no engineered drawings, there's nothing like that, so, to even begin would require, choosing a section to start with and getting plans. Bergman's really good about giving us ideas in the back. I know Sean is looking at it right now. There's ideas for who we can seek funding from, and there's several different programs. Some of them we're familiar with, some of them I haven't used before. One of the suggestions was New York Main Streets. One of the biggest parts of the plan was, improving the intersection at 5 and 20, which we need a little more cooperation from the state, I think, before something like that would be successful. But I guess what I'm saying is I feel like it's potential that we need a group to champion this, or I'm just not sure. It's just so big. We probably need to sit down and figure out, where do we start? Which section is the most important? Is it the southern end where it may be easier, or is it the northern end where we meet the city? Just because that's probably where the most people are. But my update is there is no update. Nothing's happened. For whatever reasons, it just
So
hasn't.
you really need
been
you
prioritized.
really need a committee to,
I almost feel like it. I hate to say we need another
Yeah, I
committee,
know.
but
Well, what was the original impetus of the study?
I almost feel like my memory of it is when we had the Complete Streets Committee. That committee was Gary Davis, me, a few residents, including Adeline and another woman named Kelly. We were there. I think Eric Cooper was in it. And we had maps laid out on the table of the whole town, and we all took turns highlighting different parts that were lacking good pedestrian facilities and which ones we thought were the most important. And everybody agreed that Middle Cheshire Road was used a lot, but didn't have a lot to offer for sidewalks and paths. Yes, there is the one section, but other than that, we all agreed that it didn't really have much, but its sections of it at least are heavily used. And I think that was my first memory of really focusing on it.
There was another piece to it too. I think it was 2015, 2016, Ontario County did a same active transportation study,
Yeah.
UPWP on County Road 16. And one of the findings was that there was such limited ability to make improvements on County Road 16 that the town should look at Middle Cheshire Road as an alternative. And so
Yeah.
that was the basis for our grant application for.
and also the roads connecting County Road
Yes,
16 to Middle Cheshire Road, yes.
connecting over. So then that study was done. The 2022 budget does have some money relative to this concept. I think one of the first things that has to be figured out is basically you have a concept plan that's laid out from a feasibility aspect, but you need to understand from an engineering perspective exactly where it would go and whether or not the landowners would be willing to provide easements. And the lesson that I learned with that is we've been talking for years about North Road, putting a sidewalk to the school. And I went out and started knocking on doors, and I think it was the third house, this little old lady said to me, "You are not getting an easement across my property. I don't care what it takes." And she's like, "You're not taking down my tree," because the tree was right in the way. And I was like, oh, so we had to rethink that. And so, I think we've got a good solution for that with curb mountable sidewalks on North Road, the reconstruction of North Road limit. But you got to start to get into that
Yeah.
level of detail to understand what's possible or not realistically.
And
I
there-
said that to Jim Hecker one time, that you're not getting an easement across the back of my property. And it took some negotiation, and I gave him a one-time easement. But, I got
Ultimately,
something in
can't the
return.
town just take it?
Well,
Yeah, that would go over
I mean,
really
we've all
well.
heard of this eminent
Public
domain.
good.
Yeah,
Yep.
the
but
town tries to avoid that in every sense of the word. Right, Gary?
But-
I recommend negotiation before doing
I've heard
that.
that since I started, unfriendly or nicer, perhaps than we used to be.
I mean, this plan does have, suggestions for which side of the road and, you know, the treatments. This section should be, you know, along the road, like down in the ends towards like Wells Curtis where there's not as much use, you know, some of the suggestions are, well, bikes can share
However, the Wells
road.
Curtis Westlake Road intersection is the most dangerous in
Rough
that
one.
entire
Yeah.
plan. It is, and I
Well,
see that on a daily basis.
And they
so.
made suggestions, a lot of people didn't like their suggestions. So,
There's the piece, obviously, that I would generally describe it as Fox Ridge North
yeah,
to 5 and 20, that's still missing. That needs to be looked at also. The one thing that I know that's in the plan that there was a lot of concern about was there was a concept laid out for crossing the city's property near the water treatment facility, and it is my understanding that that is probably not something that is actually realistically feasible and would not be approved because of the Homeland Security concerns relative to the water.
Water treatments.
yeah, the idea, because some people in the group said, well, why couldn't we put a path there down to County Road
Yeah.
16?
Yeah.
So Bergman said, well, here's an idea of what that could look like,
That's
but
the
yeah.
trail behind your house,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, there was.
But I don't see where that needs to go to,
There were, and like Doug said, there was.
in my opinion, it'd be
pushback,
better
maybe
if
not.
it could circle around and go to Whitehall's Road.
Well, one of the other ideas that they gave us a very low-level concept plan was, well, if we don't use that to go down to County Road 16, there's a nice wetland there. You could do boardwalks and interpretive trails, and they gave us
Exactly.
a plan, concept level plan for
Exactly.
looking into that, which I think, you know, maybe one day would be worthy to consider that too.
Not everybody thinks it needs to go down to Westlake Road.
No,
Yeah, there was.
they did it because enough people asked what might that look like, so.
But I really look at it not all that different from the Auburn Trail. It's so big of an area, right? You need to break it into segments, maybe a north section, a south
I
section.
agree with, well, I think between each intersection should be, you know, the northern section up to Butler Road, from Butler Road to Knott Road,
Yeah.
I
And
would
there
think
are
the
lots of,
priority
like-
would be to finish off that trail down to the bypass.
Going
And I hear a lot of complaints about
The north
that not getting
sidewalk.
done.
Yeah,
But the thing that really hurts that, for complete streets, is once you put the gutters in, if you have to put them in, that messes up the bike riders and
Yes, it
stuff like
does.
that. And it's, you know, a bad idea, so I mean, if you're looking for complete streets, you can't have the gutters there, at least where they are. Because you drive out Middle Cheshire and you've got a wide space for the bikers until you get out there where the gutters are, and then there's, you know, like that.
yes, I agree, and it's dangerous. That section between Butler Road
Yeah.
and Knott Road, you know, because it curves and there's a hill and it's, you know, there's property on both sides. It's a dangerous area.
But there's a lot of communities that have either mixed-use paths or mixed-use split paths that are not part of the road,
I
that
agree.
are on the side, that could be either used for biking and walking, or I've also seen it, and we were riding bikes in Washington DC, outskirts of Washington DC, and they had an area that was, the one side was for walkers, and then there were like these, like markings, and essentially, and then bikes were on the other side. But it was still a separate path from
Is
the
that
road.
like the concept for, uptowns?
Yes, similar, yeah.
But the other thing you could do is you could widen the current path and have a bike path marked the whole length of that current path. And that would be mixed use also. I recommend it. I
So,
think
in
it
this
should
trail,
be done.
they did, there are natural breaking points
Mhm.
because there's different types of treatments that were suggestion for different sections of the road. And it's stuff like you guys are talking about. They said, here you should have a shared use off-road path. Here you should do sidewalks, like especially near the hospital. Here you should share the road, like down along the farm areas and stuff like that. So, I mean, tackling it in pieces probably, they did kind of make that easy for us, whatever piece we choose to start with.
It's also education too, you
Yeah.
know, letting bike riders know, okay, here you're gonna, you have to come off the road. And it's really, it's that, and we're gonna have to reach out to the public once we do this, and let them know.
In this town, it makes sense to get the cyclists off of Westlake Road and onto Middle Cheshire Road, because Middle Cheshire Road is the only road it has the area available to widen the path, and in my opinion. Where Westlake Road, everybody's just right up against the road. There's really no way you can put a bike path in there.
No, but you won't get the
But the
bikers
thing
off
is,
of it, they'll use it anyway.
The 35-mile-an-hour speed limit does nothing to protect cyclists, frankly.
As,
Besides, that's a county road and the.
Yeah, I know,
Middle
I know,
Treasure is
yeah.
down on there.
I do bike into breakfast, and I won't take Middle Chester Road because there's too many cars. I go in
That's
Westlake Road, even though, but people do go slower,
Mhm.
and it's to me, it's much safer going Westlake Road than just up Main Street.
But
Then-
if the sidewalks were widened and they ran the full length of Middle Cheshire Road, and there was a bike path marked on the
I'm
sidewalk,
gonna be
you
long
wouldn't take
dead
it?
before that happens.
Yeah, well, I realize that.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about you, I'm thinking about your grandkids.
And again, when we had the Complete Streets Committee, and people were whining about biking on that road and Middle Cheshire Road, that's just not a good place to be a biker. Whether it's the width of the road or the speed of the cars,
Yes,
it ain't gonna happen in our lifetimes.
And having the bikes along was the same with where people are walking, I don't know, you run into problems there because people are walking their dogs
Yeah.
on leashes and
Mm-hmm.
women are, with strollers and stuff like that too, and the bikers are gonna be.
I don't know, I've seen, in other countries, I've seen shared paths, and certainly it takes an education to accomplish the use of them. But what, are Europeans smarter than Americans? I hope not.
They're
Yeah,
a lot more frugal, and there's a hell of a lot more bikers in
They do,
Europe
that's
than there
their
are
culture.
here.
is
Right,
That's-
more-
exactly.
Yeah.
But
They're
these
more
shared
active.
paths are not for the cyclists who are out to ride 50 miles in a day
Yeah.
and go 25 miles an hour.
Right.
It's, for the people
Right.
out riding.
Right, sorry.
I mean, my husband used to cycle, 80 miles in a day when he was training, and he liked Westlake Road because it was safer than 21.
Yeah.
He hated 364. And he said, yeah, I know, but he would come down onto Westlake instead of some of the other roads because cars did go slower and they were used to people being on the road, so they moved out of the way for him.
Yeah, and I've done all three, in Middle
Yeah.
Cheshire, and I've done 21, I prefer the Westlake Road.
21 scares the daylights out of me when I see a biker run.
So this is, one of those things, well, yeah, so Middle Cheshire Road could be improved, so it can be better used for bikers and people walking, but
Karen has said something key here a couple of times, and I think in order to do it, you do have to widen that existing path once you get to that
yeah.
point. But I'm not so sure there's room in the right of way to widen that, and that's where I go back to, do you have to understand from an engineering, a survey, and easement?
Exactly, I understand that, yes. I wish I had been here before they put the gutters in, because I
Well,
think that just
we-
screwed it all up.
Urbanized Middle Cheshire Road without thinking of the other impacts. And it's hard to change now.
You can bike up and down Laurel Lane, no problem at all, day or night.
As long as you don't want to get anywhere.
That's always been the training ground, so for young children to learn how to ride bikes.
Right.
Well, it's good, it's
It's
not,
safe in the.
it's not a through street.
I used to tell my kids, go play in the street.
So, okay. I'm getting a sense that yes, people want to move forward with this, and we agree that it's a big project and it's gonna take forever, but maybe we start at the northern end.
I
think
Yeah,
so.
it's just gonna evolve over time. It's nothing that's gonna happen
Before you
next
start
year.
at one end or one area of it, you really have to have a complete understanding of the whole length. So I would suggest you have a committee and divide up the sections and learn how to integrate the sections together. Is that in that plan?
Yes.
If I remember,
That's already
okay,
This was done like a year and a half, it's all in here.
okay.
Again, not
Have
in
you
the
seen
year
it?
plan,
No.
but there's cross sections cut out
Study it and there'll
showing
be a
you
quiz
how
next
far
week.
away
Okay.
to it, how wide the path is,
That's
what
all.
can be made out of, here's your options. Not, this is a done deal, but based on all the conversations and the right-of-way width and everything that's there, the utilities that are under the ground, we have a pretty good starting point. And I don't wanna forget that and start over.
So then I'd say let's start at the north end, because that's the critical end.
We haven't figured out how to get people across the expressway. I mean, I
No.
see
Yeah.
people ready to dash.
Well, there's another piece where it actually might be good to start with that, is DOT has told us, you remember, is it 22 or 23? I think it's 22, they're starting, where they're redoing that whole intersection, and they're changing the traffic lights and everything. The traffic lights are gonna be on the opposite sides of the intersection, and it's a traffic safety calming, essentially, is what they call it. So essentially what they say is, when the light, because there's been so many people that run red lights there, that what they say, that they have statistics that prove that when the red light is further away, people are less likely to drive through the intersection. So they're moving and they're putting those giant arms on the opposite sides of the intersections. So on each corner of these poles, and they'll be widening things out and a variety of other changes. And so it's also a good time for us to be working with them and talking about crosswalks. I know our Planning Public Works Committee, we had one conversation about it, but you know, maybe it is a good time to start up there, since we know that that work is imminent. So
Are those poles gonna be lighted too, like you were talking about the LED up and
these are just
Just
the
strands.
mast, I think is what they're called, the big poles with the arms that stick out.
They should have never put that road there.
Mast arms.
Mast arms, thanks.
The, I'm surprised they're not putting a roundabout there.
This plan says that's an idea.
I love roundabouts.
I live in Europe.
I like them too.
European and heart. Yeah, I like them too.
And the suggestion we had for the crosswalks wasn't, both sides, it was just on the side, if you're on Middle Cheshire Road heading to the city, the crosswalk would be on your right, crossing 5 and 20, with, timed crossing lights like they have down at the intersection of South Main and 5 and 20. So it's just one side to make it, just keep everybody in one spot. And it's, all the work they put into it, it seemed like it makes sense. But they also wanted to do some other treatments in that area, because that's where the switchback trail comes up,
Right.
and kind of tie that into. They had suggestions for making it look really nice too. But yeah, it is good timing. We just need to, the
Well-
state's plans don't have any of that in it, the crosswalk or anything, so.
But it makes perfect sense if they're going to start doing something with that intersection in another year. That would make sense
Just trying
to
to tie in.
pull that intersection out of the plan and work on that part of the road.
But that's one thing, Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, they aren't putting a turning lane on coming south, right? So I mean, they're
Well,
not
wait,
accomplishing.
it's so on Middle Cheshire Road, right? So
When you're
there's
coming
already a
to-
turning lane right on 5 and 20,
Yeah,
on
Yeah.
both
like
sides.
going north, you can turn
Yeah.
right.
Right.
But on coming south, you just have the one lane and they're not gonna expand that for you, so you have a turning lane on that side, right?
That's what they told us, right?
So that's not gonna accomplish
So
a
we're
lot.
still gonna continue to keep advocating for that. And, we've got to provide them some additional information, but yeah, that's what they said at this point. This change of the lights they were explaining to us, and Chuck, I know you were at that meeting also, jump in here, but it was a grant that they had received specifically for traffic safety relative to these red lights and running the intersections. And so it was very specific work of these mast arms and that sort of thing.
They're doing it over at 247 and 5 and 22, right?
Again.
I think they were gonna put
should have known.
larger lenses on the signals too, so they'd be, and also LEDs, which are sort of the state of the art as far as traffic signals.
What were you gonna say, Tom?
Again, the state should be the expert on this thing. It should have never been designed that way. They should have anticipated the speed of the vehicles and the fact that there would be, anytime you come off of Middle Cheshire Road, there's somebody that's beating the light or running through the red light. It happens daily.
Look at the tire marks going east and west, and some of them are tractor trailers that are.
Yeah, and again, if you're driving a big rig with a lot of weight, it's probably,
Yeah, right. It's
if you're
difficult to
going
make that.
55 or maybe 60, you're not gonna be able to stop for that light. The timing is bad, and that's, again, the state should know better.
They don't drive it.
Well, these are pros, these are freaking engineers.
You can't, yeah, that explains
I
it all.
know, right? We're mere mortals.
But at least we have a personality, they don't.
Yeah. Sorry, Chuck.
So do you guys feel like we need committee, or do we just start to kind of
I think it just
take a look at the
evolves.
grant opportunities and move forward that way?
It
you
evolves
feel
if
like
and
taking
when we
that
do
on.
any improvements.
I mean,
We
we've got a
probably
plan to
don't.
start from.
You know, you have a plan there, a concept plan. We probably don't, but you're going to have have the engineering drawings, et cetera, whatever.
Well, and that's
So
where
that
the
stuff
funding
is-
comes into play. A lot of these fundings are two parts, you know, the first round is getting someone to design it, and then you can ask for money again for the construction of it. Or, you know, if the funding is available, or you know, just do it. But
So go for it.
And I don't know when the funding windows are for some of these programs I've never done before, but sometimes they're in the spring, sometimes they're in the fall. So it could be as early as next spring we could look into it. Or potentially a year from now.
You work with GTC then?
Probably. Oh yeah, that's one of the parts that I actually haven't gotten one before, but this project was through a grant. And GTC offers another grant that's like a successive program to the one that we got here. This one is the planning conceptual idea phase, and they offer other funding for the actual construction and engineering. You can get it in a package deal for both. You can get money for the engineering and actually starting construction, and that one is called the Transportation Improvement Plan. That one, I think.
So then do you bring in our highway department into the mix?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jim's been involved in this the whole time.
With winter coming on, and I know we had a discussion in Complete Streets. Do we have a local law that compels the abutting landowners on Middle Cheshire Road to shovel the walks and walkway or whatever it is in front of their homes?
So there's a local law that is on the books that does require the shoveling of sidewalks and that sort of thing by the landowner of the parcel. There's a couple of challenges with the Middle Cheshire Road. So it's easy to enforce it on 332. For instance, the sidewalk is on the properties and we talk with the businesses, et cetera, et cetera. I think it gets a little more challenging on Middle Cheshire Road because that pathway was put in the public right of way.
Mhm.
It's actually, in a lot of places, it's not actually on the property itself. So that's where,
Not on the landowner's property.
correct,
I don't care. It's to the public benefit.
but the way the
Keep it clear.
law is written, I think it might matter.
Change the law.
You're on the ordinance committee, bring it up.
No, I would think it's certainly good for the community and the technicality of whether it's on a right of way or on the
Yeah.
homeowner's land. It's still
I think it needs to be
Community
looked at.
good.
I 100% agree with you, Tom. I think it
Yeah.
needs to be looked at. It is something that needs to be discussed. It was, it's my understanding that law was put in place when the state widened 332 from the 2 lanes to the 4 lanes, and that's when it was done. It was relative to 332, but interestingly enough, it seems like there was a deliberate attempt not to even codify that law, so you can't actually find it in the town code, even though the law was adopted.
Found it a couple years ago, and when we found it, I was like, oh, wow, hey, look, didn't even know we had this.
Yeah, we've had this discussion
Yeah.
before, yeah. But if you've got people on Middle Cheshire Road walking their dogs or walking in the road once it starts snowing, we're gonna have another tragedy.
Some people do shovel the sidewalks, and there's one man who shovels like a whole block, and he was the doctor. He has nothing else to do with it.
I'm a snowblower.
But I see your point, and I agree with you, because I used to walk that, and it was very difficult to walk it.
Yeah.
What makes it really difficult is when somebody has a plow come in and they pack that right in.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Spring before, you're done with the blacktop, we can.
So perhaps the CIC should make a recommendation to the town board to clarify the law that pertains to sidewalks, including Middle Cheshire Road. And just don't let people know it's not on their property.
Yeah, I don't
Crying
think
out
you
loud.
gotta get into the weeds about who really owns it. Because we probably didn't do the right procedure to actually put it in,
I
right?
think so. I think it just kind of went in.
It just
Yeah, it
happened.
just kind of went in, said, oh, God, we gotta do
Can
something.
the town not keep that clear, Doug? Can the town not maintain it? Or is that kind of a gray area kind of thing?
Yeah, that's.
Do people say that like you're on our property kind of thing if they try to?
No, I mean, the town could, I mean, some, like, for instance, the city of Canandaigua. There's certain places where the city, like downtown, for instance, the bid,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
they plow all that and everything, or the bid does. And then they'll go through and plow, if the homeowner doesn't, then send the homeowner a bill, right? So to the town board, if the town board wants to enact that type of a policy or, whatever the case, that's one of the benefits of the curb mountable sidewalks that we've been talking about for like North Road. They can run the wing down it in the wintertime with no problem in hitting and that. So I mean, I think, as we look at options for Middle Cheshire Road, we need to be thinking about those types of things.
Well, we're gonna need that for the uptown area too.
Well, so uptown is a little different, and we're actually talking about the creation of a bid, right? Where the bid would actually go in just
Yes.
like downtown and take care of those types of things.
Just be
And then
nice.
that wouldn't go on the residents of the town of Canandaigua tax bill, that would be paid for by the businesses and the
Businesses.
landowners
Yeah.
in uptown, so.
It'd just be nice to see that sidewalk clear and the whole stretch in Middle Cheshire shoveled in the winter time. It'd be nice.
But in a possible solution, create a sidewalk district or something where everybody was just assessed $5 a year or whatever it would be for the number of lineal feet that abut their property.
That's gonna go big.
I mean, yes, that is another option. Yeah.
That might sidestep the legal issue of whether it's on their land or a right of way.
That is an option, or putting it in the budget, I mean, either way.
But I think the local law just says if you abut it.
It achieves the same thing.
And like the one in the city, like, our property line stopped at I think it stopped at the
In the
sidewalk.
city, I think it stops at the curb.
No, we didn't get the grass on the other side of the sidewalk. That wasn't included in our property. We just had to mow it.
So you went to
That's
the,
another thing. We
You
had
got to mow it
We
though.
had to.
in between the sidewalk and the curb,
Yeah.
you had to mow it?
Yeah, and we had to water the trees that they planted. They didn't send us letters about that. And we had to shovel the sidewalks. And it didn't matter if you owned it or if it was, you just,
Well, it should,
like they
it
said,
should.
they'd send you a bill.
Well, it's something that has to be addressed, because we have a plan that's required, that's looking at sidewalks, the full length of Middle Cheshire Road is, which is how many miles, 4 miles, whatever.
I have a
mean-
note that maybe the ordinance committee would like to take a look at that, and I'm gonna email it to the ordinance committee.
I think that's a great idea.
That sounds like gas in the buck.
Yeah.
No,
On sidewalks, I've always had trouble with this, even on the complete streets. Sidewalks, you have to be ADA compliant, right? What about trails or walking paths? You don't have to be. So that's basically a walking path, it's not a sidewalk in Middle Cheshire.
That is not a sidewalk, no. That doesn't meet any of the town requirements for a sidewalk. The town, Chuck went through that whole process with site design and it actually
Yep.
spelled out all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think the fact it doesn't meet the standards is maybe not good. And the other thing I was just thinking, I think we've got to have a policy for sidewalk maintenance in general. It's more than just snow removal. You also got the creation of trip hazards, blocks rise and fall. With blacktop, you got tree trunks or tree roots that grow up through it and they become trip hazards. And I think there's a certain liability that the township or the town may have on those pathways if we don't have a policy as to how it should be resolved.
Yeah, Chuck is 100% right. I can tell you in my development, the town is responsible for the maintenance of the concrete sidewalks that were installed by the developer and accepted by the town of Canandaigua. And the sidewalk in numerous areas is broken and a trip hazard, and I've seen people trip. And I keep providing that information in terms of those addresses, but it hasn't made it to the fix list yet. And so Chuck is 100% right. There is a liability that's exposure for the town.
are you required to shovel the rock?
No.
Who does?
Well, most of the landowners just voluntarily do it, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Absolutely.
dilemma or a flaw
Yeah,
there.
Right.
What about up in the Morel?
That's true. Yeah, without-
Same time, anytime we accept dedication, the town is responsible for that. Forget the sidewalk shoveling for a second. What Chuck's talking about is the maintenance, when it breaks over time and then there's issues and and nobody's going in and repairing those, yeah.
So is that taken into account in their tax structure for those particular developments?
No, the town is accepting dedication, so it becomes part of the highway budget and the highway's responsibility.
So
Because
who
it
said
becomes-
something about a highway district?
But he was saying the
The
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
A sidewalk
district.
district.
So we don't currently have any sidewalk districts in the town of Canandaigua.
So
We could create them, but
It
we don't
seems
have
to
them.
me with the development that we have had, the boom, we should be thinking about something like that.
So sidewalk districts are specific to the properties that are receiving the benefit or the joint, as Tom was saying, or even a development for that matter.
Certainly in the development, but also, you could have an area, I don't know much about districts, but you, certainly like a water district is area wide. You could have Middle Cheshire Road wide district.
Well, let's use
Something like
an
that.
example of Fox Ridge is a great example. So in Fox Ridge, there's a lighting district. So the lights that go down through Fox Ridge, the residents of Fox Ridge all pay into that lighting district to keep those lights maintained and operational. There could also be a sidewalk district to cover the cost, the maintenance, et cetera, of the sidewalks in that same development. It's set up the exact same way. And that could be replicated for every development in the town of Canandaigua,
And
if the town wanted to do that.
I think we should start to address that issue because we're requiring more and more of this type of accessibility. in our routes throughout the town of Canandaigua. So accessibility means plowed sidewalks, shoveled sidewalks, and, you know, frankly, I can't understand people. If I had a sidewalk in front of my house, it would be shoveled. You know, I'd have Russ out there shoveling every single morning.
Maybe Russ decided to move then.
He wouldn't visit so
He
often.
doesn't live there.
He wouldn't visit that often.
But he would shovel if I handed him.
But the special districts, you know, we currently operate 28 special districts in the town of Canandaigua. That's something that the town board could create a special district. Maybe it's something where there needs to be a policy. Maybe it's something the ordinance committee looks like, or maybe it's something the planning board that they recommend a sidewalk district or something. But right now, I can tell you what happens when we accept dedication of the road and all of the apparatuses associated with the road. The way that's currently happening is the town is also accepting dedication of the sidewalk and responsibility. And so then that goes into the expenses relative to the highway fund. And I think truthfully, it's not high on the radar, not high on the priority list, and that's why these issues do not get corrected. I'm not talking about the shoveling, I'm talking about the other.
Yeah. Walking dangers, yeah.
Yeah, but all you need, Doug, is one lawsuit and that'll
Right.
bring it to the priority.
Right.
Yeah, you're not reinventing the wheel here. I mean, I think the thing is to do some research and go out and find what other towns are doing. I know down in my former life, I can remember there were months that I would go out with a crew and we'd walk sidewalks and be looking for sidewalks and measuring with measuring tapes as to whether the deflection was more than 3/4 of an inch. If it was, it became a trip hazard. And the homeowner got a notice to repair the sidewalk. And if they didn't, it was repaired by the township and they were sent a bill. So I think coming up with some sort of policy, sidewalk policy is something we need. And I probably would start with the staff looking into what's out there currently in terms of other towns, and then possibly passing on that research to the ordinance committee.
Right. So, and that becomes too easy. I mean, Chuck, to your point, we have two examples of two different ways to handle that. The city of Canandaigua, the city actually covers the cost of the repair of those sidewalks, those concrete sidewalks, and they use their CHIPS money for that. The city of Geneva, they will go and repair the sidewalk, but they send the bill to the landowner.
There are two options right there.
What's the town of Victor? Keeping away from the city, what's the town of Victor do with? Town of Farmington.
Town of Farmington or Victor, I don't know. I have to look into that more. I don't know specifically. The last time I had conversations and looked at that, I looked at that a couple of years ago. I don't think they had a policy in place.
That's what I was wondering, because the town would be different than, the city of Canandaigua, the city of Geneva and stuff.
Yeah, where it's going to catch up with you is these residential subdivisions where you have lots and you're going to have sidewalks in front of them. And as you know, the planning board's been requiring more sidewalks and more developments. And at some point, we've got to figure out how they're going to be maintained, both from a snow removal as well as the long-term maintenance. Over.
This is not a new issue, and we wouldn't be inventing the wheel or anything.
But I think
Talk
for
to
this issue,
Chris,
get
talk to
away
your
building the sidewalk.
municipal insurer. I'm sure they'd have a recommendation. Because, they're ultimately covering their streets and roads and existence hazards. They're gonna say, okay, this is how you confront it.
I think E-code probably has something with the codification. They have, you could reference sidewalk maintenance and probably pull up a dozen ordinances that have language for sidewalk maintenance.
Sounds like a lot for the ordinance committee to Add
Yeah,
to the
we were
list.
waiting for something to do.
Oh.
That's perfect.
Sorry, Gary.
You're on it.
I'll start right now. I'll do my research.
Well, I think it's really, it is an important issue, and primarily because of accessibility. You're in an aging population such as the town of Canandaigua is experiencing, you're going to have more issues like this. So who's doing what?
He added it to the ordinance list,
Ordinance.
right? Ordinance.
Who's going to do the research about what other towns are doing?
We have
Maybe
started
we'll
that.
appoint somebody like you, Sharon.
No. I'm at the end.
I'm sure you and I can come up with some
Can't be that
examples.
difficult
Yeah,
to
we
find out
don't.
what they're
No,
doing
I
in
think
it's-
these other communities.
No, I don't think you.
Shauna and I will come up with some examples that we can find and give it to the ordinance committee.
I often wondered what they did.
All right, well, thank you everyone for the suggestions for Middle Cheshire Road. I'll start looking and see what's out there, when the programs are available, when they're open. I don't imagine this is gonna be a quick process, but we can also start, we have a person at, we have lots of people we talk to, see, but, one of the women who, she's always been on our committees because she's the DOT's appointed person to meet on these committees when we have these projects for walkability improvements. I can start with her too, to find out, like, double check on their timeline for those posts and see, what would they think, what would they agree to, that kind of thing, and if there's a way we can, try and get a little more cooperation from them, or, if we were to do this, what would you need from us, kind of thing. So I'll start poking into that and see what's there. And yeah, Sean and I will look for some example code for sidewalks in some of our neighboring communities, and maybe look farther to see what other places do. Yeah, we'll keep trucking with Auburn Trail.
At the beginning of this, you're talking about the ordinance committee, it just jogged my memory, just so everybody's aware. Town board set a public hearing last night for next month for the scenic view shed overlay.
Our next meeting is November 2nd, right?
Second.
And Doug's gonna talk about the bid, uptown bid ideas, and we're also gonna talk about 22 budget and committees, I think was on the list. Just kind of a recap of what's on the books for next year.
If anybody's interested, finance meeting this Thursday morning, the 21st at 8 a.m. It'll be both in Zoom and in person in this room. We're also talking about the uptown bid.
You can just watch the recording later. All right, that's all I have, you guys. Thanks very much.
Yes.
Until next time.
Hi, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.